In today's video, I will be talking about what I will do if I were the president of an African country. So buckle up and let's go. So, let's see. If I were president of an African country, I will do what China did. China doesn't care if I copy from them, so I will copy their model. There is no need reinventing the wheel. Of course, to copy China's development model, you need to understand what China did and is still doing to rapidly develop. Now, if you want to know how they did it, it is simply through urbanization. China realized that agricultural villagers have low incomes, but the moment these same villagers migrate to urban centers, they work in different jobs, and their incomes go up substantially. Chinese leaders sat down and said, if we can replicate and speed up urbanization, but do it artificially, then we can mobilize the huge population into full employment and reap the benefits of urbanization. So what China did was to start building up planned modern cities with infrastructure and amenities besides most of the towns and villages. Once a planned city/town was completed, every individual and family was given an apartment to occupy. Larger families with more members get larger apartments according to the size of the family, and individuals get single apartments. You may be asking by now, how do the villagers get jobs? Well, once the construction begins, many of the working age population from the village work on construction and other projects, so they already have good paying jobs than their vegetable farms. Now remember, this is a process that normally occurs in every country around the world because there is rural to urban migration going on everywhere in the world. The problem with allowing this rural to urban migration to happen naturally is that although it still causes countries to develop and reap increased GDP, it is very slow and unplanned. This means the benefits are slow, and because it is unplanned, urban centers usually face severe hardships in the form of inadequate infrastructure. What China did was to speed up the process and also plan the urban centers that villagers will be moving to, so once they arrive, they do not settle in city slums. Now I know many people will be leaving me comments and pointing out that forced urbanization is tantamount to human right abuse, yada yada yada. To an extent it is, but do not forget that any economic policy that a government engages in anywhere in the world has both positive and negative impacts on people. What governments usually do is a cost-benefit analysis, and if the benefits outweigh the costs, the policy goes into effect. Now to give a little detail, the Chinese government always pays market rate for the land that they have to build the new city or construction project on. Citizens can use the money to buy in the same area being developed or in another area. Sometimes a free apartment is included as part of that compensation. In almost all the cases, the government leaves you much wealthier than when you had your old house. China is a master of this craft, and many citizens are often ready to sacrifice a little for a greater good of the whole society. I personally like China's model of development, because it is very simple, easy to follow, and easy to understand. Therefore, if I were an African leader of any country, I would study the model very well and replicate it in the country that I lead. The second most important thing I will do as the president of an African country is that I will focus my attention on solving basic problems that does not require a lot of money to solve. Solving many of these basic problems will automatically eliminate other bigger problems and the issue of lack of investment in African countries. Some basic problems that are common to all African countries include: 1. Badly lacking major roads in African cities. There are only about 5 or 6 main roads, and all the smaller streets feed into these few roads, making for some horrendous traffic in African cities. 2. Open sewers that smell bad and are breeding grounds for malarial mosquitoes. 3. Street vendors/hawkers everywhere. You can buy almost anything at a traffic light or a toll booth. 4. A lot of corrupt cops hitting drivers up for bribes. 5. Several guys who will start washing your windshield at a traffic light without asking if you want it cleaned, and even though someone already cleaned it at the previous traffic light. The aforementioned issues are usually the reasons why big multinations company avoid setting up businesses in most developing countries in Africa. They explain that setting up and doing businesses in Africa is extremely hard due to poor infrastructure and lack of organization in these countries. If African governments could triple the number of major roads in the cities, and that single act alone will solve most of the traffic situation in African cities and other associated problems that arises from traffic congestion. The next issue is lack of street names and house numbers and addresses. If we cannot even locate people when looking for them, why will investors grant loans to people if the borrower can just disappear when it comes time to repay the loans, and you cannot find his street address to locate him? Another issue that can be solved easily and does not require too much money is relocating road vendors and passenger stations and putting them further away from busy roads. There is a whole lot of disturbance that goes on around these car stations and spill onto the roads, causing extra traffic jams. If these stations are relocated a few kilometers from the car stations, the disturbances will not spill over and affect the roads. Last but not the least, African governments should start organizing their informal sectors and formalizing them. It's been said that the IMF was shocked when they estimated and got to know how big Africa's informal sector is. The International Labour Organization estimates that more than 55% of sub-Saharan Africa's GDP and 80% of its labor force is in the informal sector. Most of these are not accounted for in any government statistics, making estimates of GDP and employment very low. African governments therefore have huge opportunities to invest just a little money into these sectors. Remember, these sectors already exists, so governments do not need too much money to create jobs here. They just need to put little money so these sectors can be well structured to start contributing to city revenues. Large informal sectors like we have in Africa often adds to city congestion through informal vending and transport services, but does not contribute to city revenues. These vendors and transportation services should be formalized by building modern markets and passenger stations closer to their present locations, but further away from city streets. Vendors and drivers should then get free spaces or slots within the newly created market spaces without paying for them, but in exchange they should be required to register their businesses with the cities and pay taxes. They will also be required to sign a contract with the city never to relocate back to the side of the road. These actions will surely decongest the roads and lead to cleaner cities, while at the same time providing the much-needed revenues our cities need in the form of business taxes and licensing fees. They will also be covered by various government statistics, and boost GDP and employment numbers. So, this was all about what I will do if I were the president of an African country. Hope you liked this video. If you want to see more of these videos, left me cow by subscribing to the channel and pressing the bell icon. Thank you, bye. And see you next time with another video.